name's Carla. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time in the world you may be watching this. I am doing the Meet an Israeli show right now, and we are talking to Shimi. Well, that's about all I can say.
Shimi Khan.
And Shimi Khan, and he's going to introduce himself, and then we'll have a bit of a dialogue. Shimi, let everyone know who you are.
All right. My name is Shimi Khan. I was born and raised in Israel. I currently live in Seattle. I'm a chef. I have that's pretty much what I do for a living. I'm an entrepreneur. I've built a business called Falafel Salam, and I've been running that for the last 9 years. And this is where I'm at currently.
Is it a vegetarian restaurant?
It is not vegetarian, but we have a lot of vegetarian food. It is all organic, humanely raised animals that we use because we don't believe in cruelty to animals. So kind of took that from the ethics of that I had growing up. So I did that in the way I would see it in the Western world, per se.
Okay. Wow. I didn't even realize that. That's really cool. Can you give us, only because your name is so unusual, is Shimi Tziporim or something like that?
Oh, that's just a Facebook name. That's not the actual name. My name is Shimi Khan.
Well, can you translate your Facebook name, please?
Oh, Tziporim is birds. That's a nickname I got in the army, and also I think that it would represent a lot of who I am as far as a free bird.
And what does Shimi mean?
Shimi is short for Shimshon, which is Samson in Hebrew.
Okay. Now, you were born in Israel, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you grew up in Israel. How was your life growing up?
I had a lot of freedom. I grew up in a small town. We had like 50 families when we moved there. Just I would be playing outside all day. Pretty much it was, there was a lot of freedom. It was great.
Did you feel safe growing up in Israel?
Yes, mostly, with the exception of certain events that were happening. One of them being the Gulf War in '91. I remember pretty clearly going down to bomb shelters pretty much every night, putting on a gas mask, sitting with my family, waiting till the radio says we could leave. Other times it was weird was '95 when there was buses blowing up every week. There was 1 to 2 buses blowing up in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And that was a really weird time in my life. Definitely one of the more traumatic years. And then there was other events here and there. And this is the thing, it's pretty safe overall, even in wartime, except at specific areas. It's kind of weird. It's such a small place, but there are such nuances to each area.
Now, you mentioned that you were in the Israeli army. How long did you serve?
I was there for 2 years.
And can you talk a little about the time in the army? First of all, in the army, that they have both women and men serving,
Absolutely.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And does everyone serve?
Yes, pretty much. Except there's some anomalies, people that don't serve, but they have to do national service, such as volunteering in hospitals, at schools, in community centers, and they do that for a year or 2 years.
Now, could you have gotten out of serving in the army to do one of those services?
No, I could not. The only way you could do that really is currently mostly if you're a female and mostly if you're a religious female. So you could go and do those things because of conscientious of kind of reasoning of not being in the army as a religious woman, which they find not modest.
Okay, so for you, it was all the kids your age
Absolutely.
went to the army with you. Is that correct?
Yes.
So how old are you when you go into the army?
18, 19, depending on when you finish high school.
So you go from high school to the army
Yes.
and then back if you want to go to college. Is that correct?
Yes. Men do usually 3 years and women do 2 years, and yeah.
You said you did only 2 years.
Yes. I pieced out. I couldn't stand it anymore. It was not my thing. I was never into a hierarchy. I don't believe in the hierarchy of just generally just don't believe in the hierarchies that a lot of societies have, especially in the military. And I don't agree with the cause. I don't disagree with it either. It's just not my cause. It's not my calling in life. So I just didn't want to participate in something that is not my thing.
How did you get to leave?
I acted crazy.
What did you do? I'm
not going to get into that in detail. Yeah, I just pretty much did reverse psychology on the psychologist and got out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm a pacifist too, so I'm not trying to be argumentative about this, but what made you turn from being in the army to a pacifist way of life? Or maybe you were
First of all, it's a very interesting thing. I guess we have to define and agree about what pacifism is. My definition of pacifism is probably a little bit different than yours. The way I see things is I think that the natural order in the world is war. Peace is the unnatural state of things, and that's what we need to strive for all the time. But the world will always go towards chaos if we don't actually make a conscious effort to make peace and maintain peace. Okay, in the animal kingdom, there is fights between the animals and then for example, one animal goes into the territory of another, and then they fight, and one animal is gone, and then that territory belongs to that animal. And that is a status quo for a certain amount of time. But then there will be another war later on, and a status quo will change. So kind of like that's kind of been my perspective for quite a while now, and I just don't see that battle as my own battle. I am Jewish because that's how I was born. It's my race. But it's not my religion per se, and I, as a matter of fact, don't agree with any religion. I am very spiritual, but do not agree with monotheism. I think everybody talks about the same thing, but there's different ways, and some of the ways are kind of they have more control and people involved and all kinds of stuff like that. So I kind of went off topic there, so I'm not really
No, keep going. I like this conversation.
All right. So where was I?
You were talking about religion and spirituality. It's fine.
Well, essentially, it's just so the whole conflict there, in my eyes, I don't think that it's a political conflict at all. I think it's 100% a religious battle between two groups that have a different opinion about what God said, and that's kind of their problem to deal with. I have family there. I have very Orthodox family. That's where my background. And that's the choice of what they want to, their reality. They believe in these things, and that's okay. But it was not my beliefs. So that whole system, that whole idea of fighting for a cause that I don't agree with was said, I don't want to partake in it. It's just I have no interest in it. I'm literally wasting my time. Time is a finite thing. We don't have it. We don't have all of it. And when I was 21, I went to the army when I was 19. So when I was 21, I said, I don't want to waste another year doing this. I'm not into it. So why do it now? Why continue?
How did that make your parents feel, or your family?
Okay. I mean, it wasn't that much of a surprise. They know my opinions. So it was honestly, it was a surprise. I didn't think I would get out of the army that easily. It was good acting, but it was but I got out like in the first meeting I met the psychologist, and that was like, and he said, all right, you're out of the army. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? I was not prepared for it. And it was great, but I was not prepared for it. So no one was. And I just kind of went from there. I went just to clear my head up. So I went to Spain for a month.
Could you have stayed in Israel if you had wanted to?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're still, do you go back and visit ever?
Yes, I do. I go every other year.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Because that's your home. You grew up there. Your
I
friends.
wouldn't call it my home. I would not. I'd say that's definitely shaped a lot of who I am. It's not. It's just. I don't. How do I say this? I think that there's too much emphasis on like. How would I explain this? Like home, a nationality. I'm not national. I'm not a nationalist. It's not a concept I believe in at all. So it's like where my home is. I live with my girlfriend. She's my home. That's home. Where I was born, it's not my home. That's where my family is. That's where I have some friends at. So I will definitely go and visit, and it's a great place to visit. So I'll go there, but it's not my home. I would not call it that.
I sort of agree with you. I feel like, it doesn't matter where you are. We're all connected by
Absolutely.
one thing, and that's the breath.
Yep, absolutely.
That doesn't change because you're in Israel or Palestine or the United States.
Absolutely.
That's always the same.
Absolutely. And I would say this, I do like living in, there's, every place has its ups and downs, and you give up one thing and get another. But I do like in Seattle where it's okay that people are different. It's okay that people have different opinions, and it's okay. And it's all relaxed. It's not like we don't argue about the fact that we have different opinions, even if we do. It's just like, it's okay. Everything's okay. And in the Middle East, it's not like that. So that's kind of why I also had to leave Israel. Everybody's like, it's very tense. It's like, what do you think? What do you think? Oh, you think with this guy, so you're against this guy. And it's like, no, I don't have to be against this guy if I don't agree with you. And it doesn't matter who is, it's a lot of that. So, yeah.
It's funny because I spoke with someone yesterday who said the exact opposite.
How so?
And he said, we just don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. And we all get along. We just know that we're different.
And
you're saying...
What's the context of that? That person was living in the States, living in Israel.
In Israel. In Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv is an interesting place in Israel. Tel Aviv is its own country in essence. It's got its own microclimate as far as culture goes.
Explain that to me more.
Tel Aviv is very, very, very liberal, and it has kind of a very different vibe than the rest of the country.
What do you mean by that?
When the whole thing about it's a pretty unreligious city. So Israel has religion is part of the state. That's just part of the reality there.
Right.
Whether it's Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, but it is part of it. It's literally part of the law. If anywhere from marriage laws and all kinds of laws, and businesses being open on the Sabbath and not being open on the Sabbath, and all these different. And Tel Aviv kind of just doesn't give a damn, and kind of just did its own thing. It's a very liberal city. Although the public transportation is down on Saturday, there's still private company that's like it's like these minivans that are essentially they're going on the same route as buses and the same numbers. I actually don't know exactly what's going on now. There was all kinds of rules about closing on the Sabbath, and that's brand new. That just happened recently. So I'm not involved in Israeli politics currently, so I don't exactly know about that. But Tel Aviv kind of just did its own thing, and everything's always open on the weekend, and it's a super hustling and bustling city on the weekend, and yeah.
That's really kind of interesting because it was almost a totally different conversation. He said, oh, we have Christians in this building and Palestinians.
Oh, absolutely.
We all get along. And I was like, hey, that's great. I love it.
Absolutely. And that it is a microcosm, and it is a big representation of a part of the country, but it's also not representing the country as well in the same time, because it's like its own reality. Tel Aviv, and we call it the the Tel Aviv bubble. So while there was wars going on, like in the frontiers, for example, there was a war going on in the south with all the missiles coming in from Gaza and whatnot. It was hundreds and thousands of missiles, and in Tel Aviv, people were still going out to restaurants. It was just like bourgeois. It was all going on. It was, and that's also part of the Israeli attitude of we will continue in spite of, because we won't put our head down. But it's a very Tel Aviv thing to just kind of have your own bubble.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never ever knew that. I grew up Jewish, and I've always thought I'd like to go to Israel. And I remember my parents scheduling a trip to take my nephew there when he was 13. And it was canceled because of all of the wars going on. Why go now?
Yeah, but you could still go in wartime, and there will still be everything happening as normal. It's kind of crazy. I won't lie.
Is that all over Israel, or is it mainly in Tel Aviv?
It's all over Israel. It's just the general attitude after the Holocaust. The Jews said never again, and they just said, I'm not going to have my head down because someone tells me to have it, or because I'm afraid. I'll have my head up high regardless of the situation, because never again. So that is part of the new Israeli, the modern Israeli, is that attitude. So I think it's just prominent in the Israeli culture.
Now, it just fascinates me to hear your story, which is different from everyone else's. If you were given a magic wand and could wave it, what would you want to change in Israel?
Hands down, I would entirely remove every single person in the parliament, every single one. I'll just remove them all. And we need a new parliament entirely. We also need a new parliament entirely for the Palestinians. They are led by terrorist organizations. Hamas is in Gaza. You have the PLO in Ramallah. Like, you can't, like, there's these people are the leaders are they don't care about their people, and nor do ours. A lot of our leaders don't care about the people. It's a lot about personal agendas and elitism, and we need a new parliament. We also need a parliament on both sides that's 50-50 with men and women. It's 2018, and it's time that we just stop playing these stupid games. 50% of the population is women. We need that voice. We need that voice of reason. That's what I would do.
In my mind, you get that from women, but I don't want to get into that now.
Oh, yeah, but yeah. Anyways, I think it should be 50-50, and it should also be 50-50 on the Palestinian side of men and women.
I agree.
And immediately, and that's another thing. I would say I'm very liberal, but I do have one criticism, big time, to the leadership of the all Palestinian facets. They are encouraging verbally and physically. They're encouraging acts of terrorism. That's not going to work. It's kind of like we're perpetuating the same thing. It's like you're not going to win. Israel's significantly stronger. The more you fight, the more pain you're going to get back, and it sucks for both sides. Okay. You need to give up the notion that it's going to come through violence entirely. It's because it's not going to. It could continue for 200 more years, or we could stop killing each other. I think it's pretty easy, but I think that a big move, a part of that, it has to be in the leadership, and that's the leadership of both sides.
Killing people is not the answer in my mind. In fact, I think that makes things worse.
In some cases not. It's a complicated topic. I think war is necessary. So I would say, if anything, I follow Taoism, and one of the things they talk about is that a good general is never happy to go out to war, but he goes to war because he knows he needs to.
And that's true. There are times that you need to go to war for different reasons.
Absolutely. And so I'm not a pacifist that's against war. I prefer to strive to peace all the time and avoid war at all costs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But there are times that maybe war cannot be avoided in order to keep the peace.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm seeing here is we could have peace. There's a sentence by Golda Meir that I stand by 100% is when it's, how does it go? It's something along when, I forgot how it goes, but it's some sentence along the lines of, if we put down our guns, we won't have a state. If they put down our guns, we'll have peace. And that's something I fully agree with, even as a liberal. There's kind of a scenario there where you have to protect yourself. You're not going to say, hey, I'm not going to protect myself. You're trying to kill me. No one's going to say, I'm not going to protect myself. But it's like this perpetual, like, if it stopped, if aggression stopped from Palestine, I guarantee that aggression would stop from Israel. There's like, the Israelis are not interested in war with the Palestinians. Almost all Israelis I know are not interested in a war. I know a lot of people that are very much pro-peace. And that's my generation. That's our voice. But it's you know, it's as long as there is aggression coming from, there's no option but to retaliate. And even the very big pacifists in Israel understand that.
So if you were going to create this new parliament, what kind of, other than having it 50% women and men, what else would you want to see?
Culture of communication. The culture of communication currently in the parliament is quite disgusting. If you look at it, it looks like a Jerry Springer show. It's kind of, I don't understand how that's even legal. In a parliament, which is supposed to be a respectable place, that parliament members are cursing each other and yelling at each other and swinging their hands at each other. I have zero idea how that even became a thing that's allowed. Okay? Flat out.
I agree. I can't figure it out either. It just doesn't make sense. But that's also happening here in maybe not the same, scenario, but look at what's happening in the United States.
Here it's more extreme, I'd say, significantly more extreme. Here, first of all, I don't think that there's actually democracy. I think that a two-party system has nothing to do with democracy, especially the electoral system. It has nothing to do with democracy. I actually refrain from voting, although I have the right, because I will not participate in a system that doesn't give me options. It's absurd. It's absurd that there's a two-party system, and it's absurd we're doing electoral system. I don't think that's ever going to change unless this country, like any other empire, collapses and rises as new countries.
We're coming to the end, and I'm just wondering if you want to have any words of wisdom you want to share.
Words of wisdom. Put yourself in another person's shoes. It doesn't matter if it's your enemy. Put yourself in your shoes and think how your reality would be growing up in that reality. That's all you know. Think about that.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's something I try to keep in mind in dealing with people on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Because everyone's different.
And everyone has a story, and it's I've actually, that's how I met Rehan, is my brother was talking to him on Facebook at that time, and this was the war in Gaza, and I was kind of doing a thing with myself about empathy, and I was thinking about what kind of reality would it be being in Gaza while there's airstrikes dropping missiles on you, and you're a kid, you're a 5-year-old kid, you're a 7-year-old kid, 10, whatever, it doesn't matter. And you don't know anything about reality. You don't understand politics. You don't understand manipulation. You don't understand all the ugly side of the human character, the ugliness. You don't understand that. But what you know is that there's missiles dropping, and you're running from building to a building, and you know that your best friend just got killed, and you know that your parents, and you're now an orphan, or so that kind of really hit home for me. And when I was putting myself in that place, and I started talking to people in Gaza to see, like, hey, tell me how is it, show me videos of how it looks from your side, show me images, like I want to see it in live, not through the media, because the media is flat out lying, like flat out, on both directions. It's literally, it's almost, they're stirring the pot on both directions. So I wanted to see the real thing. And it would be amazing for me to see Palestinians doing the same thing, and thinking about what it's like being a kid that was born wherever he was born in Israel, and being in a town that has he's just in the middle of the night, someone breaks into the house in their town and wipes out an entire family with a machine gun, or with a knife, or what is it like to sit on the bus and be someone that's an old person that's getting attacked with a knife just for being who he is without anything, or it's just crazy. Like, just if you put yourself in the other person's shoes, you're able to see like so much, and you actually could experience that pain, like take it in. You could experience that pain and that discomfort.
I can't imagine growing up in Israel in that environment as a child and feeling safe.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel safe growing in the States with mass shootings in schools, or psychos that kidnap kids and put them in basements, or stuff that we don't have in Israel. So I mean, it's all. We went around anywhere, anytime, any hour of the day, and it was never an issue. Here, I would not send anyone anytime, any hour of the day. I'm just not going to do it.
It's amazing.
It's all, there's give and take on every single scenario. There's problems in the heart of the biggest empire. There's problems in a little country in the middle of the Middle East. There's every place you go to. I mean, you have there's great things about Germany. There's bad things about Germany. There's great things about France. There's bad things about France. Everywhere has its trade-offs. Some places are totally horrible, but that's a different story for a different time.
And I'd like to discuss it with you, if you wouldn't mind, at some other time.
Possibly, yeah. There's atrocities going on all over the planet all the time, so it's right. Not even like something that we need to wait for, have a campaign going on. There's these things going on all the time, so.
Right, and it's crazy. But to be able to live in Israel, and as you said, I can go anywhere, and I felt comfortable, and I felt safe. And yet war is happening all the time.
But you get used to it. Humans are very adaptable.
Right.
And you also get numbed out too. I remember getting to the point emotionally numbed out towards the end of '95 when buses were blowing up every week. So it was 1 to 2 buses every single week. And I remember it when it was, some of the explosions took like 80 people, one bus, 2 buses blowing up, 80 people. And then like it got to the point where towards the end, like if only like 5 people died or 10 people died, it was like, oh, only 5 or 10 people. But then like, because you got so numbed out because it's on a regular basis.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, that was a pretty intense year of my life, '95. I remember it very clearly.
How old were you then?
10 years old.
Wow. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine growing up like that.
I'm grateful I did. I know what this life looks like.
With fear, and it's bizarre.
Yeah.
Kids are afraid to go to school.
No, we have insane interference of money over people, so we have a problem.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and for telling your story in such an honest way.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad that we had time to talk.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.